guys, welcome to Health Street, and today we are going to go right to safe days. And why are we talking about safe days? Because I want you to understand your body. I want you to understand how your body functions as a female, all right? Even as a male, you can educate your girl child, you can educate your wife, your spouse, all right? It's good to understand what are these safe days that people keep on talking about. And in regards to that, I've made a small table behind me. I hope we'll be able to use it to make you understand better. But before that, we need a background information. We cannot just talk about safe days without knowing what are these, why are they there, all right? Actually, why are safe days there? So let's talk about a little bit about fertilization. So fertilization is the fusion of the sperm and the ovum. The sperm is the male reproductive cell, and the ovum is the female reproductive cell. So when they fuse, they produce a zygote, and it is the zygote that develops through a lot of processes. We have cleavage, we have blastocyst formation, we have implantation into the uterine walls. We will talk about all those things here. So after ovulation, all those processes happen, and we end up having a whole baby that develops in the endometrium of your uterus. And that's how we end up having a baby. And it starts from having an intercourse on your unsafe days. It could be planned or unplanned pregnancy, whatever. So long as an egg meets the sperm, a zygote will be formed in most cases. It doesn't always become a successful pregnancy, but in most cases it does. All right. So that is how we end up coming up with unsafe days and safe days. And so what is menstrual cycle? These are a series of changes that take place in a woman's body in preparation for a possible pregnancy. All right. And this cycle could range from a 21-day cycle to a 28-day cycle to a 30-day cycle, a 34, a 35, a 33. We have different cycles, all right? So we have different cycle lengths, ideally. So the shortest that is considered normal is a 21-day one. So if it is less than 21 day, I think you need to look for medical attention. And if it is longer than 35 days, you also need to look for medical attention. All right. And if you have excessive bleeding, for instance, it's said that the ideal bleeding period should be between 1 to max 5 days, and if we have a grace period of 2 days, maybe 1 to 7. Some people have got a 7-day. But if it's more than that, actually, if it's 7 days, I think you need to see a doctor. All right? So it's good to know about your reproductive health as a lady, all right? Or as a female. So we have talked about, the cycle. And this cycle, however, be it a 21-day cycle, be it a 28, a 30, a 35, so it has got phases. There are phases in your cycle I'm going to use an ideal cycle, which is a 28-day cycle. So between day 1 to day 5, that is a phase we call menstrual phase, where you're shedding, your uterine wall is shedding, and that is when you see blood coming out of your vagina. This is a medical street, so we use medical terms. So out of your vagina, all right? So that is when you will see blood coming out. Your walls will shed, and that is the day you'll be having your periods, your menses, all right? And then we have another phase between day 1 and day 13. Remember, you're using a 28-day cycle, yeah? So day 1 to day 13, that cycle, we call it a follicular phase. And this follicular phase is when your follicles are developing. So remember, when a female child is born, they are born with all their eggs. No eggs are produced after you're born. The only thing they do is they mature. So those eggs are stored in a follicle, and the follicles are stored in the ovaries. So each and every month, a follicle will mature up, and this is stimulated by hormones. So the follicle stimulating hormone is at work between day 1 and day 13, and it is maturing this egg. And then we have another hormone that comes in, that is the luteinizing hormone, that makes this egg to be released. And that is what we call ovulation, when the egg is released. We are assuming it is taking place in the mid-cycle, and this is the 14th day in this, our 28-day cycle. All right, so we have ovulation on the 14th day, and then from the 15th day to the 28th day, that is another phase that we call the luteal phase. This luteal phase occurs when the follicular, the follicle that has just released the egg, starts producing progesterone, and this progesterone is thickening, is maintaining the thickness of the wall. Obviously, when the egg has been released, it goes to the fallopian tube, and there it waits for the sperm to fertilize it. And if fertilization takes place, then a series of activities like cleavage, formation of blastocyst, implantation will take place, and then this uterine wall that has been prepared and thickened will hold the baby, and will hold the embryo and hold it to term until birth. All right. So I hope you have had a background information of your phases in the menstrual cycle. For instance, if your cycle is a 30-day one, that means we are assuming you're going to have ovulation on day 15th, but don't be fooled, it can take place a few days earlier or a few days after, ideally 2 days after or 2 days before. All right, so, or even way far, depending on your cycle. All right, depending on what is going on in your body, you have to understand that things like environmental changes, hormonal changes, whatever is going on in your life. For example, you could be under medication. Some people are undergoing chemotherapies. All those things can affect your menstrual cycle. All right, so we cannot just stand here and say, we cannot strongly say that from day 1 to day 7, I am safe. Then from day 7 to day 21, I am not safe. Then from day 21 to day 28, I am safe. Regardless of whatever is going on in your body, you have to consider all those factors. Yeah, some people are lucky enough, their cycles are really stable. Well, it's upon you to master your cycle and calculate it according to the table I'm going to show you there. And life is even easier nowadays. We have calculation calendars. We have calendars that you have calendar apps that you can install in your phones, so that when your period comes, you just put the date when it began and when it ended, and then it's going to keep a track. It's going to give you a record of your menstrual cycle. You can be able to track that and see, oh, on these particular months it was stable, on these particular months it was not stable. You understand? So life has become easy, and others will just use a simple calendar. You just write it down. Oh, it began here, because sometimes it's hard to know even when your period began or when it stopped. All right, is the next thing I want you to know. Oh, another thing you have to understand about when it comes to safe days and unsafe days. Actually, have I told you what unsafe days are? So unsafe days are those days that you have a higher chance, or the highest chances of getting pregnant. All right, and so we have unsafe days and safe days. Safe days are those that you are less likely to get pregnant. Unsafe days are those that you have very, very high chances of getting pregnant. All right, and in order to consider those days, as I've told you, in order to consider your safe days and unsafe days, you have to consider the length of your cycle, so that you can know when ovulation takes place. You also have to consider something very important, Mr. Man, like the sperm. Sperm can survive in the female reproductive tract for 5 good days. What does that tell you? If you have sex 5 days before your ovulation and ejaculation took place, you know what ejaculation is? Ejaculation is the release of semen by the male into your reproductive health, into your vagina when you're having an intercourse. That means this semen will be containing sperms. I'm assuming our male is healthy, doesn't have important issues, because also in as much as the male are not affected by a cycle, they don't have a cycle. So long as they are healthy and they have ejaculated, they're supposed to be having sperms throughout. All right, they're supposed to be fertile throughout. So the semen will contain what we call it. This semen will be containing sperms and nutrients to nourish the sperm, and that is why it's able to stay that long in the reproductive tract. All right. So what was I saying? Yeah, the lifespan of a sperm after ejaculation into the female reproductive tract can be up to 5 days. So that is what you have to consider. And another thing you have to consider is that an ovum, when released, can survive for 24 hours. We used to study 48 hours, but nowadays the books I'm studying are giving me 24 hours. So there is that aspect. So consider the 48 hours I used to study a long time ago and the 24 hours of currently. So 48 hours or 24 hours of ovum survival in the after ovulation, and 5 days of sperm survival in the reproduction tract. Well, before we go on, I want you to understand that the main reason why I'm teaching you this, or I'm teaching us this, is not so that we can be reckless, knowing that on these days we cannot get pregnant. It's so that we can understand your body. That is the main reason why we are doing this. It's good to understand your body. If you hear of safe days, where is this coming from? Why are we talking about safe days? It's for that reason, all right? To understand your body. And of course, some people struggle with fertility because maybe their partners have traveled, and when they come, they don't even know which are the best days to try having a baby. So yeah, you can try on those unsafe days. For instance, we're going to use somebody with a 28-day cycle. So from day one, when you are having the first day when you see your periods, your monthly periods, that is the first day of the cycle. So from day 1 to day 7, we say that is a safe day, because first of all, there's no ovum that has been produced. And then from day 7 to day 14, first of all, from day 1 to day 20, to the 20th day, those are unsafe days. But let's start from here. So from day to day 14, why are those days unsafe? We are considering the 5 days of the sperm being in the tract before ovulation. So if you've had your sex, let's say you've had a sexual intercourse, let's say on the 8th day. So from the 8th day to the 14th day, so 8th, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, those are 6 days, actually 7 days after the 14th one. So if you've had sex there's a chance of the sperms being alive for 5 days, and you're giving yourself the grace of the ovum being produced earlier or the 14th day. All right. And then we have from the 14th day to the 20th day, what is going on there? So again, why is it unsafe from now this 14th day to the 20th? Haven't we said that the egg stays for 48 hours or 24 hours? But don't forget that we also have a chance of the egg being produced before, or rather after, the 14th day. So let's say it was produced on the 17th day. Give it its 2 days of survival. So that leaves you with what? It's just that we don't want to make any mistake. We are giving it all the chances to have been produced and regenerated into the body, or disappeared into the body. All right. So that is why we are having that big period. So the period of, ideally, you're just fertile for 48 hours. 48 hours, the production, the what do we call it, the ovulation, you're only fertile on the ovulation day, you're only fertile on the ovulation day and on the 24 hours that the egg survives. That is the only time that you are fertile. But now, why are we having all those 14th days of being unsafe? It's because we have to consider the sperm survival, and we also have to consider the possibilities of a sperm of an ovum being produced earlier or after the expected date. So the most important thing for you to understand is you have to understand when your cycle is, how long your cycle is. You have to understand how long your cycle is. Is it a 21-day cycle? So if you have a 21-day cycle, when is my ovulation day? That's around 11th day or 10th day. All right, and then from there you can be able to find out which are my safe days, which are the days I'm not safe. And if you have such cycles that are very short, it's not wise to use the safe days. You have to look for another contraceptive. All right, be really in touch with your body. And if you have very long cycles or irregular cycles, it's not wise again to use the safe days as a form of contraceptive, because these cycles are likely to really disappoint you. All right, but yeah, some still work. Honestly, they do. But the thing is, you are empowered. Do what you want to do with that information. All right. So let me take you through the small table that I made for us to understand the 28-day cycle, and then from there I think we can just end this video here, and I hope you're going to learn something, you guys. All right, okay, let's go on to the table. I hope you're going to see it. So this is our little table here, as you can see, and I'm going to explain to you what this means. So we have day 1 to 28. So we are talking about a 28 day cycle. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 28 days. So that is a 28 menstrual cycle, 28-day menstrual cycle. So as you can see, from day 1 to day 5, we call that the menstrual phase. And that is when you're having your monthly periods. That is when your uterine wall is shedding. All right, so that is the menstrual phase. And then we have from day 1 to day 13. So that is what we call the follicular phase. I told you about the follicle stimulating hormone and your follicles, your ovum developing, maturing, getting ready to be ovulated on the 14th day. So on the 14th day, you can see that is when ovulation takes place by the help of the luteinizing hormone. So your ovum is produced and it is released into the fallopian tube. All right, then what happens after the ovulation, after the egg has been released into the has been released to the fallopian tube? So it stays there awaiting for a sperm to come, or it finds a sperm waiting there for fertilization. It depends when your copulation had taken place. All right, so on this day you're very fertile. In case of a sexual intercourse, you're likely to get pregnant very fast. So between day 15 to day 28, we call this a luteal phase, and this phase is when progesterone is very high. So after ovulation has occurred, the follicle that produces it becomes corpus luteum and starts producing progesterone, and that progesterone is what maintains the uterine wall. So during the luteal phase, this is a waiting phase where the body is waiting for to take place so that the embryo can be implanted into the uterine wall. So what happens is, if, for example, after ovulation, fertilization takes place, if a sperm was waiting, or if you had an intercourse during this time, fertilization takes place, and then an embryo gets implanted into this wall that was really waiting for pregnancy to occur. So during luteal phase, so there is a lot of progesterone being produced by the corpus luteum, and that progesterone maintains the uterine wall. All right. So let me give you a small fact about progesterone. So after ovulation, I've told you the corpus luteum produces progesterone, right? So if in case you get pregnant in this phase, the corpus luteum will continue producing progesterone to maintain the pregnancy up to around 10 to 12 weeks. I think I told you that earlier. If I didn't, then I'm telling you. So after the 12th week or the 10th week, the placenta will take that role. All right. So you've seen the phases of your cycle. We have the menstrual phase from day 1 to 5. We have the follicular phase from day 1 to day 13. And then we have the ovulation day. That is ideally day 14. And don't forget that it can occur on day 12, on day 13, on day 16, day 17, around there. It can occur before or after, depending on how your body is on that particular cycle, all right, or that particular month. So yeah, you have seen we're in the follicular phase, ovulation, then you have the luteal phase. So that is how your cycle is basically. And then on this one, we are talking about a 28-day cycle. So on the 28-day cycle, from day 1 when you are having your menses to day 7, we call that, those are safe days. And then from day 8 to day 14, you are not safe. Then from day 14 to day 20, you are not safe. We call them unsafe days. Unsafe in terms of you can get pregnant on these days. Why? From day 8 to day 14, I told you that the sperm can survive for 5 days. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 on the 14th day. Reason why we are giving it a 7-day period is because ovulation can take place earlier or before. Or it doesn't have to be strictly on that mid-cycle. It can always, but in most cases it comes on the 14th. It can always take place earlier or before, and that's why we have the same case here. That's why from day 14 to day 20 we are not safe, because ovulation can take place on 15th, 16th, 17th, you understand? So you have to give it the grace period. And as I told you, ideally you are only fertile on, if we really knew that somebody's ovulation is going to take place on the 14th day, yeah, then that is the day you are fertile. And the other day, so let's say ovulation took place on day 14, then you are only fertile on day 14 and where the ovulation took place, and then the next 24 hours, that is 16, or on the 15th, that means on the 16th you are safe. But we cannot assume that, because our bodies are not a machine controlled body or item. There is fluctuation. It's not guaranteed that ovulation will take place on the 14th day. It can take place earlier or before. So you understand. So let's assume that you had I think I told you that if you have a 30-day cycle, then this 14th ovulation will be 15th. If you have a 34-day, then this 14 will be day 17. If you had a 21 one, then this 14 will be represented by 10 or the 11. You understand? So I hope this helps you to understand a little bit about your cycle and safe days, unsafe days, all those things. All right, guys. See you in the next video. I hope you've learned something and you've enjoyed the video. Bye.